Fast forward, I'm all finished up here. You can see the pulley there through the wheel. Make sure you don't skip any of the video. There's some very important torque specs for that, depending on the year and bolt that you have and whatnot. So you're also gonna probably need a little tool for the flywheel. I explain later in the video. So unlike intake and exhaust mods that only give you generally a power increase from the mid-range up, it's mostly top end power. Pulleys give you a gain in the entire rev range, from pretty much from idle all the way to redline. Before taking off the belt or loosening the alternator, loosen your water pump pulley bolts, then also the crank pulley bolt. I've been at this for an hour. Do yourself a huge favor. Pull off the plastic oil pan cover. And then right here's another plastic shield. That is just two 10mm bolts holding it up in there. Take your wheel off. See, now you can get to this easy as shit. It's impossible. Like, you can get a wrench around it from up top, but you're never gonna get it. So I was sitting here forever having someone hold the brake with my wrench clear out here and turning it, and even without the tires turning, just from the motor pivoting, I couldn't get that bolt to come off. Hit it with this, came right off. Easy as shit. So some sort of impact tool is really going to help here. Take the wheel off, take the cover off, bam, done. Now we got to take the belt off and get these pulleys off. So to get the belt off, there's no tensioner. Your tensioner is your alternator in this. You have to loosen this bolt. Both of these are 12mm. Both 12mm. Loosen it slightly from the alternator. Then you can loosen this. Loosen this bottom alternator bolt. Okay, see? This will pivot out of the way. And then with the bottom bolt loose, your alternator will pivot back and forth in this slot. Okay? See? Just moved a shitload. There. So now it'll pivot in that slot. Slide the belt off of your water pump pulley. Well, once we push this alternator all the way back, see there's still a gap there. I can go back further to relieve more tension. On a side note, you should mark this, and this block will basically ride up this bolt as you tighten the tension on your belt once you are reinstalling. You don't want to over tighten the belt or it could snap, and you don't want to not tighten it enough or it'll slip. So you should mark where this is in relation to this bracket and on this bolt and everything, and put it back in the same position that it was. So the alternator's all the way back. Belt will slip off of the water pump pulley easily. Okay, so your belt's free. One other thing, it's not a bad idea to draw a picture of your pulley setup and belt route, because I don't think that this car has a sticker anywhere that shows you how it routes. So make sure you know how it routes before you take it off. This pulley should just, oop, shit, I almost dropped the, not much room down here. This pulley should just come right off, yeah. There's a little pulley. Wow. Oh man. It's like 3 times as light. There's the end of the water pump. Now this crank pulley is probably going to be stuck on there a little bit. We may be able to wiggle it off, or I might have to get a pulley puller on it. Oh, it's loose. I'm noticing this pin here. Oh, there we go. Wow, that just came right off. That's like the easiest pulley removal ever. So obviously that pin is to line it up. Okay. Now this one's real heavy. And oh shit, that was close. That is like 10 times as light. Originally when I pulled this out of the box, I thought that was a nick, and it's not. That is your timing mark. And so when you install this, you're going to want the timing mark on the outside of the engine, just like I'm holding it right now, this orientation. You don't want it like that. Timing mark on the outside. Alright. Pretty. Again, make sure that timing mark's on the outside, but it's pretty clear with these because the brand name's on the outside. Which, as far as I know, is about the only damn company that makes a pulley for these. Okay. Not really going to be able to do this one one-handed, so obviously slide that on there. There's no marks or anything for that. You just put it on, bolt it back on. Those look nice. So it's a lot easier from the bottom to line these holes up with the bolt. Alright, so there's how the belt routes. Again, slide it over the water pump pulley last. It's the easiest that way. It's real easy to get back on compared to others for sure. I'm going to go tighten this belt up some, and then we'll torque these pulleys down. So we got it rerouted. Come back up here, back this out enough to catch it in this notch. Okay. Remember, this bolt's still loose and the bottom bolt's still loose, so that the alternator will turn and pivot. And then you just tighten this up. Until it's back in the position that it was in. Like I said in the beginning, you should mark this so you know where it goes. And get it back to where it was. And then you just tighten down this bolt, and then tighten your bolt up back down there, and then you're done. Once this is in the proper position, so that you have proper tension on the belt. Alright, I can't find torque specs for this. It's hard to find torque specs on these cars. You can just, again, this one's going to be position really, not so much torque, and just putting them in the correct position. You torque this bolt down to about 15-20 foot-pounds of torque, you're going to be good in that bottom bolt. Probably about 25 or so, should be fine. Basically just snug them down nice and tight and don't over tighten them. Alright, so from the information I found, which is very sparse, water pump bolts anywhere from 7 to 9 foot-pounds. And on these water pump bolts, it wouldn't be a terrible idea to put a little bit of thread locker on them as well, just in case. The crank bolt. Okay, after several hours of digging, I finally found the answer on the torque specification for this crank bolt. It varies depending on the year and all that, but anyways, here's the information for that. It had two extremely different torque specs. One was a 35 to 38 foot-pounds. Plus additional rotation. Stay tuned for that. The other one was like 95 to 108 foot-pounds. Now, what I found was the 35 to 38 foot-pounds, it said 12T is 35 to 38 or 34 to 38. And then 11T was 94 or 95 to like 108. 2012 to 2013 had a different bolt. It was 97 foot-pounds of torque. That would be the 94 to 108 I found. Apparently it was revised in 2014. to where it's 36, 38 foot-pounds of torque, something like that, okay? Like, and then an additional 38 to 40 degrees of turn. Those are supposed to say 12T. That's where the whole 11T and 12T comes in. It depends on which bolt. So this is definitely beyond that date because it's a 2017, but it doesn't say 12T. So, well, my neighbor's fucking mowing behind me now, but I just found it does actually say 12T. You see it there, barely? I had to wipe some dirt off. In the pictures it looked like it would stick out, but it's not. It's actually receded. But it does say 12T. You see it there? 12T, 12T. But that was very difficult to see. I'm in here super close, and I just happened to wipe my finger across it and seen something. You can barely see it. If the light hits it right, it does say 12T. So finally, clarification. So that's 36 to 38 foot-pounds of torque, and then a 38 to 42 degree turn after that. Prior to 2014, it's going to be 97 foot-pounds. But you're still going to want to check your bolt and see if it says 12T or not, even if it's one of the older ones, because Hyundai was actually recommending upgrading to the other bolt. More on that later if you keep watching. So you might have the different bolt. There's the next problem. This thing won't stop turning. The engine pivots so much that the ratchet just, you can't get enough torque on it. So what you have to do is lock the flywheel, and I'm not sure how it's going to look different on a automatic, because this is a 6-speed, but you have to lock the flywheel in place, because you can't, well, obviously with if you try to jam something in there and keep that pulley from turning, I believe these are aluminum case, so the metal is real soft and you're gonna mess it all up, and you could crack the case trying to do that. Not to mention on these new aluminum pulleys, you're gonna mess your pulley up, and that needs to be balanced. Also, if you try to tie it up with rope or something to keep it from turning, then you run the risk of warping the pulley because it's just soft aluminum, so you can't really do that either. So the way you're supposed to do it is to lock the flywheel. And like I said, this is a 6-speed. The automatic might be a little different, but you have to locate the flywheel, and there's a little tool, I guess, you can stick in the flywheel teeth to keep it from moving. There's two different ways to do it, and maybe that's where it differs, whether it's a 6-speed or an automatic. One, you remove this, so you can move this little black cover. I've already popped it out, and the flywheel's in there, and I'm going to show that. Another method was to remove the starter to get to the flywheel. So I think that may be for the automatic, because right there's my flywheel and there's no starter in the way. So I think the starter removal method, well, it might still work on this. Where's my starter? Well, shit, the starter's clear up there. So that looks like way more of a pain in the ass. You can pull the starter out, and then you can get to the teeth on the flywheel. Or you can just remove this. Again, this is a 6-speed. It's on automatic. I'm not sure if it's going to be set up the same to where you still have the same two options, or maybe the automatic is going to be the starter removal only option. I'm not sure, but obviously for me, it's way easier just to remove this to get to the flywheel in here. So there was a little cover here. I'm going to show it in a second. I'm going to pop this off and get it out of the way. Alright, so there's that plastic thing removed. It's just 4 12mm bolts, and they're not tight at all. There's a little cover I popped out. Dust shield for the flywheel. So I don't know if we can see this. Yeah, that's pretty good. So there's your flywheel, and there's the teeth. I guess that makes some kind of little insert tool you can stick in here, which I may have to get. Not sure where to get it. Never seen anything like that before, but when you turn on that pulley and it tries to turn the motor over, the flywheel spins, because that's what connects the power to your transmission, right? this whole thing pivots like this. So that entire span of the ratchet, okay, even getting it clear up here, the entire span, the motor's just pivoting. I can't get any more torque on it because the whole thing's pivoting. And well, that was with somebody holding the brake hard as hell without the car running. And I don't even know if it would hold it strong enough. I could feel these, or I could hear these starting to make a, like, you know, a noise like they were getting ready to slip. So I don't even know if you have enough brake power. But another reason you don't want to do that is because that's putting a lot of tension on this belt. You could snap the belt or crack it or weaken it or anything like that. So especially seeing how much this whole thing was pivoting and the belt was getting tight, that's why you're supposed to lock the flywheel. So, and also without that flywheel stopping tool or ring gear stoppage tool or whatever, that's going to be impossible. Now to get that angle, you're probably going to want to mark it, get your torque, mark the bolt, mark on the pulley, you know, with a China marker or whatever. And I think you could probably use a protractor to get 40 degrees, but it's pretty easy. You know, 45 degrees is a pretty easy angle. You know, 90 straight up, 45's halfway. So you can mark it, and then that way you know when you've got roughly 40 degrees. I'm about to run the Harbor Freight. The parts store does not have the tool. I did look up the tool by the part number. I will post that right here. Like I said, the parts store don't have it. It's going to be a dealer only part. So I guess there's some universal ones. So I'm going to see if Harbor Freight has a universal one that will work. If not, I'm going to have to order the one directly from Kia or Hyundai, and from what I'm seeing online, it's anywhere from 40 to 50 bucks.
Okay guys, right here I was discussing how I found some people were trying to say that this bolt was a torque to yield bolt, which means it stretches when you torque it. So if you remove it, they were trying to say that you need to replace the bolt because it's a torque to yield. I called my Kia dealer, and they couldn't find any notes on it saying that it was a torque to yield. So I had them ask their mechanics. After I was put on hold for a few minutes, they came back to the line. They said that they went through the service manual that covers that kind of replacement, like timing cover and all that, to where they would have to take that off and reinstall it. And then they said that their books did not say that it needed replaced. So according to my Kia dealership, you should be fine just putting that bolt back in. According to them, it is not a torque to yield bolt.
You know what I did? Stuck this on. I stuck this on here and watched it turn a little more. So if you have an impact, you can sit there and watch it spin as long as it's not too powerful, or back the power down on it if you need to, and then you can see if you can get that extra 38 to 42 degrees turn. If not, you're gonna have to get that flywheel stop tool to get that extra turn on it. But that's what I did. My point is that I got my 40 degrees of extra turn after the 38 foot-pounds. Okay guys, exhaust is next. Like I said, I'm not sure exactly what I'm doing yet, but I have a pretty good idea. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell for notifications for that. That way you'll see when that pops up. And then now that we have the intake and pulley on there, and then once I do the exhaust, we'll do a few more runs with it, 0 to 60, 0 to 100 and whatnot. See how much quicker it is. Well, I just got back. Everything seems fine. These went for a 110-mile-an-hour ride. I forgot they were up there. The hood goes over top of that, and they just kind of stayed there. It's kind of funny. So, oh, and you guys are probably wondering, you know, can you feel the power and all that? So, it was kind of hard to notice at first. I took a couple. There's a few spots where I pull out on my way to work all the time, where a lot of times it's full throttle. So, you know, I'll take off and then roll in the gas full throttle in about a 90-degree curve or a little less from a stop. And initially, like I said, initially it was hard to tell there was any difference. This dyno confirmed 3 to 4 horsepower across the entire rev range. I've seen the dyno chart myself. But when I would pull out of certain spots where I'm turning from one road to another at full throttle after releasing the clutch, generally I would have no wheel spin, and with those on there I was getting some wheel spin making those sharp curves onto the other roads, so it's definitely taken off a little faster. And when I'm cruising at like 55 or 60 and then I just drop it in third and floor it like I'm passing somebody, I can tell it picks up a little bit stronger. The nose raises up a little higher and it seems to gain speed a little quicker. Other than that, somewhat spirited, but more normal driving, I guess, like, I don't know, 4,000 or 5,000 RPM, somewhere around in there. I noticed between gear shifts, it seems like there's a little more power on tap every time I grab the next gear than before. So altogether, it's really subtle. I mean, it's there, but it's really subtle. It's hard to notice 4 horsepower, but it's there. I can tell under certain circumstances, and it's just going to be a very subtle difference. You have to drive it around a little bit in places you're used to, and going up hills that you're used to and shit, and powering out of curves and stuff that you're used to, and certain gears and whatnot, and you'll notice there's a little extra on tap. So like I said, not a lot. It's only 3 or 4 horse, but it's there.